Welcome back to the Sika Strength News Show. Now we're interrupting the podcast season because we couldn't go a week without doing the news show. Today's news show is of course brought to you by the new Sika Strength app, released just a couple of days ago. The Sika Strength app is available on the iOS and Android, and one of the big programs people are jumping on at the moment is the Becoming a Horse program. So this is 4 days per week. The first block is 12 weeks in length. This focuses on strength, hypertrophy and some power development. And it's really for those people who want to develop their athletic potential, even though they're not necessarily competing in a sport. A lot of former athletes doing it, just want to get into that good shape. Which brings us on to Blaine McConnell, who is very much a horse and is also one of the guests on the upcoming podcast. So you'll see him later this week.
Blaine, to be honest, is one of my favourite podcast guests in terms of them being just solely athletically impressive.
Yeah.
He really is now, having trained in the Olympic Training Centre for years and now being a full-time athlete stroke coach, it goes without saying that he's a horse, but he embodies the horse programme.
So he's power cleaning 185 for a double from low blocks. Blaine, I know, has cleaned 200 kilos and jerked, I think, a bit more separately, but I don't know if he's ever power cleaned 200, but 185 for a double isn't far off that, especially, God, I have to imagine 195 topping out, but I assume this man is surely hoping for a 200 kilo power clean at some stage.
Blaine's still making phenomenal progress as well, even though he's slightly later on in his years. He did win Icelandic Nationals in seniors last year, didn't he?
Yes, yeah. So I think he's 38 and he recently snatched 165 from blocks. I don't think he's doing much weightlifting at the moment, as in like snatch and clean and jerk. I think he seems to be back training for a 40-yard dash, or not 40-yard dash, NFL combine style training. I think he's going to test a couple of those attributes. So I think, for Blaine, weightlifting might be easy for him, but I think he has the love of the athletic training, and I think it pulled him back in. But I was enjoying seeing his progress for sure, but maybe he might come back in. But again, everyone likes watching Blaine's just demonstrations. Next up, we've got a Brazilian female athlete, Amanda Schutt. Doesn't sound very Portuguese.
Shot.
So she's snatching 105 kilos.
I actually really like Amanda's technique here, particularly in the first pull, getting her knees back out of the way very, very quickly. Nice acceleration in the second pull. I think a lot of the time when people are trying to accelerate harder, particularly lighter weight class individuals or female athletes, when they try and accelerate a lot during the second pull, their hips come in super early, and you don't see that happening with Amanda. Looks very, very nice.
What I really like is she has a lot of thoracic extension, but then coupled with that, she has a huge amount of stability and maintenance of position throughout her back through the whole lift, which is an enviable position to be in if you're weightlifting. So you want a lot of extension, but you also want to be able to maintain that extension. So you need the mobility to have the extension and maintain it, which is a difficult balance for a lot of amateur athletes. So really, really like the position she's hitting there, especially along that second pull.
It's great to see as well that everywhere around the world the coaches lean on the jerk blocks and give subtle nods of encouragement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that she was zooming in on him.
Yeah.
Next, we have a couple of highlights from the Korean Nationals. Now, as you know, we were in the Korean National Training Centre this year in July, and one of the big things we learned is that Korean Nationals is actually pretty much one of the most important competitions every year, if not only second to the Olympics in terms of their placing, in terms of their financial gain, and what the athletes seem to compete for. But the biggest thing is international medals don't affect their income as much. Well, it's very, very important, of course. For a lot of athletes, their city or their club pays for their medaling in their positions, and Korean Nationals is the one that matters most for those clubs. So what we kind of see is, while athletes, of course, want to go to the Olympics, win gold, kind of that's the goal for them, it's equally as important as their financial standing, their, what would you say, life as an athlete, is to do really well, or it's super incentivized. And from what we gathered, a lot of the athletes, or most of the athletes on the Korean national team, if they're doing well at nationals and on the national team, are on six figures, a little bit more than that, which is phenomenal for weightlifters.
I think the world of international sports has just changed so much now, where people will hear, oh, they're on 100k a year, and think, oh, that's terrible money.
Yes.
That is a phenomenal amount of money to be making as a weightlifter. If you're basically anywhere in the world, bar 2 or 3 countries, that is so much more than you could ever hope to make. Park here is definitely one of the superstars. Lovely, lovely pull.
Clean and jerking 170 kilos. And as far as we know, she is literally, and I mean the use of the word literally in the literal sense, one of the strongest females in the world. So we score squatting at 270 high bar, which is got to be, I think it's like one of the top 3 squats, and definitely the strongest weightlifter squat we've ever seen from what we know on video.
This clean and jerk is one of the kind of main questioning points of at what point does that 15 kilo female bear start to bend or kind of impractically, yeah. You see just how shallow that dip and drive is, just how whippy that bar becomes. You're getting probably 5 to 10 degrees rotation on the end of each side there.
So one of the things in the initial recommendations for the female bear back in the late 90s was that it should actually be thicker. So one of the engineers proposed to the IWF, and of course the IWF just didn't listen and put out the specs as 25 or 26 mil. I think the current spec is at 25 and the recommendation was like 27 or something. So the men's is 28 mil. And they just didn't listen. And then we've got the problem where really strong females are getting really jostled by the whip. And Park Hee-jong is on a serious fucking tear with her lifting. Still
Absolutely.
21, I think.
It's so impressive. That is the point with the whip and the bar where you're going to get, I don't know what the weight is, maybe it's above 150 or 160. You do get a bit of an artificial elastic effect in the barbell over it. You see it in the men's bar, anything over probably 200 kilos where that whip does help you, but you definitely see it in this 170 here.
Yeah, so it's definitely something not practical to change the barbell anymore because there's too many female barbells sold around the world and all the companies do that. So they're looking at those 50 kilo plates, which is, if they just listened initially. Now, next up, we've got Minji Lee. She is, I'm not sure of her actual weight class because we couldn't specify it anywhere, but she has got some of my favorite technique I've seen in any lifter just ever, to be honest. 100%. It's so textbook. 105 and 135, so 105 here.
The timing of hitting the bottom and standing back up is Ilya-esque.
And
it is, yeah. I do not say that lightly.
No.
That is just phenomenal.
I love that she's a great example of the shoulders covering the barbell through that first pull, past the knee, second pull, almost to the top of the extension. Keep it super close. And when you hit that a lot, you get such a fast turnover, and you can see how fast the turnover is because the bar pat is smaller. You get the smaller loop or the smaller top of the S curve, and it really nails it here for her. So this 105 is classically Korean.
One thing I'd love to know is how much work they do on elbow stability, because you'd see a lot of the lighter weight class Korean lifters have that massive amount of overextension or hyperextension in the elbows. She doesn't seem to have it here. I wonder, is that something that's learned, or is that something that was just innately within her? But such good lifting.
So they seem to do a shitload of pressing and assistance work, so I assume it helps a lot, specifically with female lifters for the stability. Now, we also have a 135 kilo clean and jerk, and the jerk is one of the better or one of the best Korean jerks you'll see, and they seem to be improving a lot. If anyone remembers, Koreans used to be very inconsistent in comp with their jerks. The clean as well is something I love here, so how upright she is in the bottom and how close the turnover is.
This as well is a great selling point for just how much pressing they do in training.
Mm-hmm.
That jerk is a small bit out in front. It's a small bit not ideal, but yet she absolutely powers it overhead.
I love as well how consistent her start positions are across from both lifts. So they're both essentially similar templates, just a little bit lower in the snatch, of course, but it is really consistent.
I think what's noteworthy, so this technical model is something myself and Owen are kind of massive fans of. Nearly everything in that lift is very, very good if we were coaching someone, but foot movement is something we really like here, and we don't see a whole lot of in her lifting. Interestingly, in the Korean National Center, every training platform, so all of the 26 professional athletes have their own platform, they have their own desk at the platform, and every single one of those platforms had a special little platform insert to make people move their feet more, which is super interesting.
Then we have the Lee Sang section of the show, formerly known as the Archer Manchpov section. Lee Sang Yang clean jerked 183 kilos at 67. So this is one of the only times we'll ever see Lee Sang actually doing a full clean and jerk by itself, and it's winning Korean nationals by the looks of things.
I always love watching Lee Sang lift. I do like the kind of strange complexes he does where he turns the barbell around in between, or he goes from squatting to deadlifting. But no matter what it is, I just enjoy watching him. And to be honest, I think a lot of that is down to just how absolutely yacked he is.
I actually don't like his lifting, but I like how yacked he is so much it makes me like his lifting.
You know, there's certain CrossFitters that are like that as well, where they're so jacked. You mightn't like looking at them doing the clean and jerks or the snatch complexes or whatever, but just because they're so jacked, it looks so good. I think one thing that is enviable from Lee's lifting is that bottom position, that catch position in the clean.
Yeah.
So strong, so consistent across all the lifts.
He's so jacked he can't even zip up the back. Now, here we have Kim Kwan Hoon, who some of you might remember if you're OG fans. He is 41 years old and he is clean and jerking 171 kilos here at 81. And he used to compete in the 85, sometimes in 94. Competition results are very, very similar, or kind of accordingly, over the last couple of years at 41. And this is ridiculously fast. So this is one of the examples of a lifter who, because of that Korean system, is just still, while he's not appearing on the international scene, is just essentially nailing these kind of internet or these domestic competitions and making a good living by the looks of it.
This brings up a really important point. In the last few weeks, we've been obviously talking about weightlifting being in the Olympics or not being in the Olympics. Weightlifting can flourish with domestic level competition or kind of regional level competition, and Korea is the flagship in that kind of argument. So in your 40s, still making those consistent lifts from your kind of heyday. I remember Gabriel saying the first time we met him that he hit some of his heaviest lifts ever when he was around 19 or 20. And then for the rest of his professional career until it ended, he basically just made those top numbers more consistently.
Then we have Won Jeon Sik. So Won made a return to competition at the Korean Nationals now. So Won isn't able to make the Olympics because he's missed the requisite competitions, but he's been on an aggressive comeback as a 73. So he snatched 150 and clean and jerked just 175. So I don't think he took a second or third attempt on the clean and jerks by the looks of things. So he is really on a tear backwards. And if you look at any of his training videos, he is training hard. There's like a kind of a ferociousness to his training where you feel like he's really trying to get back at it. You know, he's on a mission by the looks of things.
I love when you see him standing up that 150 snatch and he's like racing it to the top.
Yes.
There's no catch, solidify it, then stand up nice and slowly or under control. He is horsing himself into that bar to stand it up.
Look how cool those platforms are in the warm-up room. That's amazing. So 175 here, and it doesn't look like he took any more attempts. Obviously, super casual 175. Yeah. Or, sorry, 179. Oh, that's my mistake. I didn't actually miss. I missed this. So he missed the jerk. So that is interesting. So he is really far out in front with that overhead position. So his snatches are superb and his cleans are superb, but his jerks do have that issue where he's kind of very vertically stacked. Boom, 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 boom. Now we have the Estonian Mart, the Estonian fridge, with 270 for a set of 5 in the pause back squat, which of course is absolutely nothing to Mart.
Come here, if ever there was an OG man doing crazy things with squats, it's Mart.
Yeah.
He's been around forever, it seems like. They're legitimate pauses as well. I know there's a tiny little bit of movement in the bottom, but they're legit. Like, he's sticking that pause.
Yeah, I'd love to know what he could pause back squat for a single. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Mart, of course, does not need any further work on his strength and just needs a bit more work, I think, on his weightlifting capacity. But I think his biggest issue really is his limb leverages for a super heavy on the snatch. So clean jerk is very good, of course, but the snatching is something that leaves him down just a little bit.
This 270 for 5 paused is incredibly impressive, but definitely one of the most impressive things, not just I've seen Mart team do, but in strength training in general, is his incredibly weighted lunges, the walking lunges from one end of the gym to the other with like 200 kilos.
A casual 200 kilos.
Yeah, that's no joke.
Now, sticking on the squatting train for weightlifters, we have Nurgisa Adila Tully. So basically, he's doing 240 kilos for a double here. And now, of course, him and several other Kazakhstan weightlifters and probably the whole Kazakhstan team have gotten banned, unfortunately. Now, he did say if Allah wishes, it is necessary to put up 300 kilos. So I assume he is heading for the road to 300 kilos. And hopefully he does make it. So I'm sure he must have squatted like 280 or 290 currently. So not much left.
They're really nice looking squats. I wonder, is he doing the sneaky belt underneath, or is it full raw natty vegan?
Yeah, he's doing. Look.
He
look.
is.
Yeah, there he is.
There he
the
is.
Cheater belt.
It's not a cheater belt. It's just not on display.
I've heard you call it the cheater belt.
It's I wouldn't call it cheating. You're just not telling people you're wearing a belt.
His joint angles are very strange for in two places. So in his arms overhead, so it looks like he's massively internally rotated in both the snatch and the clean, but it's something weird to do with his shoulder and elbow position. And then in the bottom position, his hips seem to kind of lack, or rather, he probably has a lot more internal rotation in his hips. So it's very interesting. He squats super wide, but we don't see much knee tracking with that. You know, it's very interesting.
One person I think whose squat would look like that if their feet were that wide would be Miso. If Miso went wider and more toes out, I feel like because of Miso's external rotation in his hips, he'd be able to hit that position too. It's weird.
The walk forward, walk back in a rig is a danger game.
That walk forward, walk back is a weightlifter doing a seminar in a CrossFit gym squat. That's a Dmitry Klokov CrossFit San Francisco squat.
Have you ever seen a CrossFit gym with lacquered floors like that, or maybe it's not lacquer but similar?
The kind of poured epoxy floor.
Yeah, that's expensive.
I was just about to say no because it would cost way too much money.
It wouldn't be great for bars either unless you had a lot of it. Unless you'd like 2 or 3 inches of epoxy floor and that, you'd be...
Yeah.
But they have good bumper plates in the bar by the looks of things, so it might be...
That could be like a local sports centre that was turned into a CrossFit centre, because I feel like if you were if you were custom building a centre, you wouldn't put that flooring in.
No, yeah, it's kind of that money.
I feel like it'd be lovely to squat on.
Oh, it'd be unreal to squat on. So next up, we've got Maddie Stanezewski with a 128 kilo squat jerk as a 63 kilo lifter, and mother of God,
insanely impressive.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, that. So obviously we're not massive fans of squat jerking here in general, but you can't deny how impressive that is and how strong and powerful that is. One crazy thing is though, Maddie seems to have very little like connection with the bar from the point it leaves her shoulder to the point where she locks it out. She's just chasing underneath it. It's not like she's driving the bar up and getting underneath. It's just absolute pop and drop.
Have you ever done a max squat jerk?
No.
Can you squat jerk?
Yes.
You've good shoulder mobility.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, normally we don't do much physique or any physique stuff unless they're also a competitive athlete in some form. But someone did tag us this, and I've got to say, they're some freaky fucking legs.
Oh my God.
They are insane.
It's, for me, like bodybuilder size is always impressive, but you see a lot of big athletes playing sport. Like you'll see a lot of big from different countries. Like a lot of the Islanders playing rugby are massive. A lot of the guys playing NFL are massive dudes. But it's the striations and the level of leanness is always what gets me with the big bodybuilders. Like he has striations on his VMO there.
What I really like about this is that people are doing that comment where they're like asking you to see Natty as if it's some kind of gotcha, and someone goes, "Are you enhanced?" and he goes, "Are you enhanced?" and your man replied, "Of fucking course."
Then someone comments underneath saying, "Dumbest comment I've seen in months. It's worth scrolling through the comment section."
Jesus Christ! It's like a thing now where it's like, oh, you've almost like trying to gotcha someone if you ask them if they're natty, you know. Where I love how he was just a fucking course I'm enhanced.
The next one, so if that's the most asked question, the next one is, what's your height?
Yes, or height and body weight.
Yeah,
that's where the meme with Zach came. It was 125 and 5'2". No, it's that's a cop out then as well. The height or body weight.
100%.
Yeah, I'd be strong too if I weighed that.
But yeah, that's the exact thing. It's like, oh, are you taking drugs, or oh, are you shorter than me? Yeah. Sure, if I was that or doing that, I'd do the exact same weights.
Yeah, I would lift the same. Would you though? Would you though? Really? Would you?
Would you honestly?
No, honestly, would you know? Now we've got this is Tiger Man. That's what his Korean name translates. But it's a 340 kilo conventional deadlift. And look, 340 is on the smaller side of deadlifts we run the new show. No one's arguing that. But there's so many heavy sumo deadlifts, like in the 300 pluses, 400. We had like a 505 kilo attempt last week. You forget just how impressive a 340 kilo conventional deadlift is from a non-super. You know, it's just
absolutely like
it's incredible.
Yeah, people need to slow down a small bit here.
Yeah.
Also, I'd love to see what it means where he's saying something plus 160 and something afterwards.
Well, let's try Google Translate. Oh, plus 160 to go until the real deadlift, man. Oh, he's saying until 500 kilos.
Oh, okay. It's such a lovely deadlift as well. Aesthetically, it's a very nice deadlift.
Because he's wearing a peak cap inside.
No, because he's using those rogue bumpers all the way out to the edge and he doesn't have a clip on.
No, I'm just let's
just call a spade here.
Let's appreciate a conventional deadlift.
Yeah.
For just that's a very impressive.
Let's appreciate just wearing a normal pair of Nike shoes as well, not those weird looking Formula 1 deadlift shoes.
The fireproof ones.
Nobody needs the fireproof Formula 1 racing car shoes.
Now, on to a man who does make the sumo deadlift impressive. We have Jamal Browner with 430 kilos by 5. And Jamal doesn't take the piss with his sumo deadlift. It's really, I feel, as close as you could get and still have a good positional sumo deadlift.
100%. I also, like, my thing for... Some people could do something called a semi-sumo deadlift.
Kind of Ed Cohen kind of thing?
Yeah. My marker for that is if someone could hit a squat in that position. I feel like Jamal isn't a whole distance away from being able to make a squat in that position.
The thing with Jamal as well, though, is he walks the walk with his conventional deadlift also. So it's kind of, that's one thing. When you see someone sumo deadlifting, but they're also backing up their numbers with conventional deadlifting, it does, just personally, on a personal note, it makes me more inclined to respect that.
For me personally?
Personally, on a personal note, just on a legal term, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I get you're doing sumo because in competition, but the conventional then is like a display of what, an accurate representation of strength would be, because sumo's cheating.
You know what I really want is...
a big sumo deadlift.
No.
Go on.
So when I look at a barbell with bumpers on it, I know what the weight is straight away. Mm-hmm. In the same way where if I look at a 20 kilo bar loaded and a 15 kilo bar, I know what's a 20 and I know what's a 15. What I really want to be able to decipher from looking at a video is what's a deadlift bar and what's not a deadlift bar.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
And it's impossible to count skinny plates from my Instagram video.
No, it's absolutely impossible.
Now, sticking with a conventional deadlift for himself, John Haack is back with a 260 kilo bench press. John, of course, was on that little foray into strongman and is now whole hog training for some powerlifting competition of the American Pro. Last heavy bench day before that.
And it is a heavy bench day. For me, this is my favourite. Of the current powerlifters lifting, John Haack is my favourite bench presser.
Yeah, it is a heavy bench, but you're right there. 260 is it is a heavy bench day, yeah.
He has a bit of elbow flare on his heavier reps. He doesn't seem to mind it. It never seems to affect him. Obviously, most of the time people would see like elbow flare or excessive elbow flare as a fault. For John, it's so consistently happening. I just don't think there'd be any reason for him to change.
Well, like if you watch the angle though, his elbow joint stays very much underneath his forearm, so you never get a closing of the angle in terms of kind of the bicep and forearm. That doesn't really close in past that the where it is at the moment. So like he's still pushing directly underneath the barbell. I do think he looks more jacked in the upper body as well.
Is he still low 90 kilos?
I don't know, but I think that's what he always competes at, is that 89 or 90 kilo class.
He does do quite aggressive weight cutting, doesn't he?
That's only 6 or 7 or 8 kilos. It's not that much.
It's lunacy. From me looking in from the outside at powerlifters, that the day before you're going to max squat, bench and deadlift over the course of 12 hours of the day, that you're going to cut 7 kilos.
But this often the day before. And weightlifting science has gotten so much more specific and accurate, and the use of additional, stuff from ions to herbs to diuretics and stuff. You're really making life a lot easier, which is, I suppose it's part of the challenge too, is making the weight. Like it's kind of part of if you're holding a world record at 90, everyone knows you cut from 90. Yes. So could you cut and still maintain performance? So it's kind of, in strength sports, it's kind of interesting because you're actually putting yourself at a disadvantage. while losing a lot of that weight. So it's not as much of a problem, whereas you're losing 15, 20 kilos and cutting down and punching someone in the head. It's like, oh, you're affecting your performance.
All that fluid that floats your brain in your skull is gone.
The one that stops your brain going like this. Yeah. Now, sticking with super strong guys, I don't know who this is. Someone tagged us in it. Thank you as always to everyone who tags us. Kyle Tiger Curvey, squatting 306 kilos for 8 reps.
This is my first time ever seeing a video of Kyle Tiger lifting, and I'm honestly blown away by it.
I thought you were going to say you're honoured.
No, it is so utterly impressive. Jokingly earlier when Gerf showed me this video, I was like, why is that bar in a high position on his back when this looks like it's going to be a low bar squat? It is a kind of a hybrid squat in between that high bar and low bar, but it is so impressive.
To be honest, this would basically be a high bar squat if he had a pair of weightlifting shoes on. So he's wearing Vans, so he's just a bit of that limited dorsiflexion. To be honest, no, it's not actually. I was going to say it kind of looks like my squat without shoes, but it doesn't at all. But if you look at the lower body angle a little bit, but if he put on weightlifting shoes, you'd see basically high bar positions exactly. But his back angle here, incredibly consistent, almost perfectly upright in the bottom. 306 for 8 reps. Big guy,
That's
strong.
too many reps at that much weight.
Big, strong guy.
Big, and look at the size of him here.
I assume he's some kind of physique athlete.
That's when you start playing like adult level rugby or senior level rugby. And you're like packing down for your first scrum, and you're like, oh, the first guy I go up against now is going to be massive. That's what's in your head.
Wait, it says national record weightlifter, IFBB Pro. Was he formerly a weightlifter?
Oh my God.
Maybe.
Please tell me he was.
An investigation for another time. Now, everyone's favourite Mega Gojira squatting 411 kilos for 4 repetitions. He seems to be on a roll with 4 reps for some reason. 4s
are something I'd never program for people. And I don't know why, but it always goes 1s, 2s, 3s, 5s, and 8s.
Sometimes people get 6x4 kind of thing.
Sometimes, but it's rare enough.
So I assume he's gearing up for a big powerlifting competition as well. But he's maybe he compete in something like the American Pro or similar. Although Mega Gojira maintains he's competed in drug tested events, so I don't know what the deal is if you're like competing in other ones.
We've talked about his stance width before here, but I also think just how vertical his torso is so utterly impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Most guys that big, most guys with that wide a stance really are going into the more lean forward or inclined forward torso angle. None of that here. He's just stacked straight up and down.
A lot of that comes from his shins, while aren't quite long. They're basically the same length as his femurs. So his tibia and femur are relatively similar lengths, so it gets you that option where you can open up your knees and still push your knees forward, but there's not a huge amount of forward travel, so your hips can kind of just basically sit in between them if you're opening them up. So he's getting those really specific positions to squat at just below that parallel point.
This isn't throwing shade at anyone, but seeing the quote in the description of this video, it's not why I fight, but who I fight for. There's something in, and this isn't about Mega Gojira, but there's something in recreational powerlifters that makes them think they're going to war when they're lifting weights. Lads, it's just lifting weights. Yeah. You're not going to war.
Yeah.
It's not going into the blackness once more. It's just lifting weights and having a good time.
To be fair, I suppose he's as far as close to professional powerlifter as you can get.
Absolutely.
What is that gif? Next up, we have Ryosuke Haga. He is a Japanese judoka, a very, very, very good one. And I just wanted to include this because this is the most aesthetic stair sprinting I've ever seen and possibly will ever see ever again.
This is Kung Fu Panda in real life. I'd love to know how often they do this. Do they do this every week, every day, or whatever? And I'd love to know, do they get faster? So he's doing 2 steps at a time here. Do they ever go to 3 steps at a time? Do they ever do single steps just as like a jog? To be honest, even the walk down from there is bound to hurt your knees so much.
The funny thing with stair sprints is that once you hit lactic threshold or equivalent, there's kind of almost no point doing them. So at the top, you can see that he's basically walking and it's almost lost its benefit. Obviously getting to that point is super beneficial, But then after that, then once you're at the point where you're moving so slowly, you might as well just come back down and reset, rest again, and then get some more speed reps in essentially. But stair sprints, phenomenal conditioning for any fighting sports or any conditioning, to be honest.
Yeah, I really like it. The other real advantage of stair sprints, so I like hill sprints more for the power production and speed and acceleration. The big advantage with the stair sprints is just how consistent your stride length is.
Yeah.
So unless you start missing steps or halfway up you go from doubles to singles or triples to doubles, they are very, very consistent. And for that kind of lactic threshold training or the general work capacity training, going a small bit slower at the start and just getting that consistent stride in the whole way up is really beneficial.
You know what the big problem with stair sprints is? It's really hard to find appropriate stairs to do stair sprints on.
And nowhere is this aesthetic.
No. Oh, yeah, it's that video.
Do you want to put in Schiefer?
Oh, fuck it, it's 32 minutes.
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
Thanks for watching the new show. Just want to say, as usual, really big appreciation to everyone who tagged us in their Instagram comments or sent us messages, or maybe tagged us on TikTok, for example. We look at every single one of them. I go through all of the tags up until last week, literally every one of them, and look at everything people tag us in. So make sure we're covering everything. So greatly appreciative of all of that. So please do keep tagging us in stuff. Best form is literally just to tag us. Sometimes the direct DMs get messed a little bit, or sometimes people email us, but tagging on Instagram is basically the most efficient way, because I literally looked through every single one of those up until the last news show. So that's one of the reasons we didn't want to miss this week for the podcast, is we'd lose a lot of good things, and there's a lot of great weightlifting there. So thanks for watching. Check out the Sika Strength Training app over on iOS and Android, where you get a lot of great benefits like dynamic loading, adjustment where it'll change your volume, your frequency after sessions, or your loading depending on what inputs you put in, video library, coach bot, Sika coach bot, which is learning and getting better all the time with people's conversations, and a lot of other great features. So check that out, Android or iOS.